we just got back from the movie theater, the actual movie theater.
Surprising.
Wait, you don't have
This is not 2019 right now.
Wait, where are your X-Men goggles? You have
sorry.
What's going on here?
Sorry, guys.
Unbelievable, the lack of professionalism. You're not going to wear those the whole time, are you?
Yeah.
Can you even see out of that?
I can. I can see, like, here.
Okay. Well, you're like the actual Scott. So
Yeah.
we just saw the New Mutants. And, how do you say... It's not as bad as people said. I don't think it's a bad movie.
No.
I do want to say that. It's not an amazing movie, though.
No, I'd say if you were rating all the X-Men movies, it's probably, like, mid-tier.
Yeah.
It's definitely not as bad as what the feedback is saying.
Yeah, that's weird how negative it is. I mean, it's not... The performances really did elevate it some, especially Anya. Like, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah,
she did
was
an
really
amazing
good.
job as
Really
Magic.
good.
So, like, she was fantastic. I think that this movie could have been a lot better, but we'll definitely get into that. And we have our script down here, so I need to occasionally look. Because this movie takes place in a weird time. We'll get more into it, but the X-Men timeline is really muddied. Someone's going to argue this. I don't really care, to be honest, because everybody's got their own interpretation of the X-Men timeline.
Yeah, and there's really no way to tell.
Well, in my
a lot of them.
and some things have been redesignated in the Marvel Wiki and stuff like that since release. Like Logan was obviously teased in Apocalypse.
Yeah.
With the Essex Corp thing. And then it was redesignated as a different future, and it's kind of off in its own bubble, like, oh, did Logan happen or not? This movie happens in that Logan timeline. So essentially you have the original X-Men timeline, you have what happens in Days of Future Past that changes things. Essentially there's a stopping point there where it's a good end. And then you also have a different end where it continues on after into the events of Logan.
Yeah.
This movie appears to be set right before or during Logan, which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But that is important, actually.
Yeah, and I was really happy to see that.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to see another movie in that timeline.
Well, but yeah, it's weird, though, because they went so back and forth in this movie in terms of, is it connected to the X-Men movies? Is it not? We even talked about that in our original X-Men review a little bit, and I think I might have cut it out, but essentially this movie was going to be in the X-Men timeline, then it wasn't going to be, then the Disney merger happened, then it was going to be again, then they acted like they didn't know.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of weird.
Tied to Logan, we'll get to that especially. Nate, you should take it away a little bit on the characters, I think.
Okay.
In our non-spoiler section, we'll tell you when we get to full spoilers.
I'm taking this thing off.
Yeah,
first
you probably
of all.
should. No one will take you seriously.
I'm like, oh, where am I?
You're Scott.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Role playing.
You're not supposed to dox me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, the characters were some actual minor characters in the X-Men universe, but I'm glad that they were brought into a movie.
Yeah.
So the most well-known one is obviously Magic.
Mm-hmm. She's wow.
Yeah, she was played by Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah. She's a fantastic
Did a great
actress.
She actually, when the movie started, I was kind of like, she's kind of a jerk, but
yeah,
she became my favorite character.
Same.
Like, she became really, really cool.
Yes.
There's also Wolfsbane,
mm-hmm.
who is played by Maisie Williams.
Who you're not a big Maisie Williams fan.
I am definitely not a Maisie Williams fan.
All the Game of Thrones stands are coming for
They're
you
all
now.
like gonna attack me.
Well, there was Sunspot too, who has done pretty well. He's like a little bit more of a shallow character.
Yeah.
And then you also had Cannonball. They don't refer to a lot of them.
Not Speedball from Spider-Man.
No,
Cannonball.
But you know what's weird? They don't refer to a lot of these people by these names.
No, the only one they do is Magic.
Yeah.
So,
but these are essentially their names from the comics.
And then there's the main character,
Danny, who was, I believe, in the comics Psyche and eventually Mirage.
Yeah,
I believe. I'm not as versed on the X-Men comics canon. I know some of it, so take that into consideration. That this is the X-Men I grew up with.
Right.
Was the
not
movies.
the comics.
And for me, yes. Like Spider-Man, it was the comics. Batman, it was the comics. X-Men, it was the movies. That was my introduction to this. So to me, I guess you could say I'm a little more partial to the film reality already, which fair enough. But there's still movies that are really bad in this, like Origins Wolverine.
Yeah,
I don't think
terrible.
many people would defend that
That's
movie.
an awful movie.
The movie is way too short. It's an hour 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's way too short.
Yeah.
Like it would have definitely benefited from another 5 minutes probably of action.
At least 5 or 10.
5 or 10 from action. Probably another 5 to 10 minutes of dialogue.
Yeah.
To set up some of the characters, which we will get into in the spoiler section.
Well, and you know what I would argue? Another 10 or 15 minutes probably of horror. This is a horror movie in a way. It's an action horror. It takes inspiration, I believe, from not Freddy's Dead, Nightmare 3, Dream Warriors. It takes place, or it takes inspiration from Dream Warriors. I was trying to think of which one it was.
Takes place in Dream Warriors.
It takes place in that canon. It might as well. They're so complicated.
Yeah, I know.
When there's a scene in the movie, and I'm not going to say anything about the scene, so it's not a spoiler, but a priest is in the movie at one point, and Nate and I were like, it's in the God's Not Dead timeline, actually. We just made a joke.
I thought it was going to be R.
Yeah.
And then you pointed out to me afterwards it was PG-13, and I was like, huh. You know, and I now knowing that, I kind of know what elements they took out of it to make it an R. And I think that some of those elements would have benefited greatly if they were in the movie. Yeah. But so I was a little disappointed to see it wasn't R.
Yeah. Well, imagine Logan without R. They tackled some really dark stuff in this that could have benefited from that. It seemed like this got nerfed by Disney.
Yeah.
Which is something we'll get to as well. But
should we transition to the spoiler section?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Before we get to spoilers, you know, obviously, if you don't want to see anything from this movie, you were like, oh, is this a complete train wreck? No, it's not. It's worth your time if you're invested in the X movies at all. If you're not at all invested, I don't know how much you'd like it. I think that a big part of our...
invested and then watch it.
Yeah, a big part of our enjoyment was from that. And also, it rests on the back of Logan in a weird way. So if you haven't seen that, I think it's going to make this more bland. Yeah. Overall, it's a mid-tier X movie. We both enjoyed it. It's not X3. It's not Origins Wolverine in terms of blah. But it's certainly not Days of Future Past, Logan, or like the Wolverine Unleashed or X2.
Right.
Any of those just prime tier superhero movies. It's not that either. My phone died.
Yeah, so we're back.
I already ordered a camera, but it hasn't come yet, so we have to use the phone for now.
Yeah.
So that sucks. But I think all we were doing was concluding the spoiler-free version, and we were just saying that it's worth your time if you're invested in the X-Men movies. It's not the best. It's not the worst. And it's weird how much people seem to hate it, because it's not nearly that bad.
Yeah, you're talking about New Mutants in general, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole movie.
Yeah, it was weird with the reviews.
Yeah.
It's just... It's not that bad.
No.
It's not good. Or I would say it's good.
I would say it's good.
It's not great.
I think it's a solid film, but it's not amazing. Yeah.
But it's not as bad as what people say it is.
No. And getting into the spoiler section, which is going to be quicker. Obviously, if you don't want to see major spoilers, you can click off here. This movie does show footage from Logan.
Yeah.
That's how we know where it takes place. Danny is a psychic character. She is able to see into the Essex Corporation's other sites and sees that they're exploiting mutants in these ways and stuff like that. And that actually shows us that this takes place either during or right before Logan.
Yeah, because it actually shows the same footage from Logan.
Yeah, it just recycled it.
So either we know she saw into the future.
Yeah.
Or she saw stuff that's going on right now.
Well, it's confusing because I thought this was set in 2020 and that's in 2029, but so, maybe this is a little later. Or this could be a little later than we thought.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's in that Logan timeline. We know that for sure. And these are essentially the kids in a different, little less strict Essex Corporation site, which was teased in Apocalypse, then shown off as the main villains in Logan, is the Essex Corporation with the Reavers. Yeah. They prevent mutants from being born, and the ones that are born, they take control of them. Which is weird because no mutants had been born in 20 years, according to Dr. What's-His-Face, I forget, from Logan.
Dr. Xavier.
No, not Dr. Xavier. The main villain from Logan's like, oh, well, no mutants have been born in 20 years, but we don't know if that's really true. It could just be BS because these mutants were born and they weren't created by Essex.
Well, and the thing is, you can't, in this movie and other X movies, is it establishes that your mutant powers don't really develop until puberty.
Right, so there might have been mutants born they didn't know about.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people could be born and they just think they're a normal person, and the person thinks they're a normal person.
Right.
All the way up until like 15 years old.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, wait a minute.
Well, and that's what happened to the New Mutants. I mean, Magic, her powers seem to activate from trauma. Like, yeah. She was... So here's the thing. We're going to get into the R-rated stuff as well. This is going to be some deep, like, dark stuff. Like, actually, I'm not memeing. Magic was, like, abused sexually. I think in Russia, but I don't know where specifically.
And we're kind of assuming as a slave.
Yes, like, she was sold into trafficking. And, like, like trafficking.
Yeah.
Because they show that there were men who would go in and abuse her and leave. And she would like retreat in her mind to this place that she called Limbo.
Yeah, Limbo.
And it was like this psychic place that she was able to go to with her dragon.
So, actually Limbo, I was actually reading about magic a little bit.
Yeah.
And Limbo is one of her powers.
Mm-hmm.
She can actually create this, not an alternate dimension, but like a world where basically her magic powers come to life.
Oh.
So that's how she was able to actually summon Loki and not just like the puppet.
Right.
Because she created Limbo around the bear at the end of the movie.
And this is Anya Taylor-Joy's character.
Yeah.
She plays magic, and essentially throughout the movie, she has this little talking Loki. Is that his name, or Loki?
Yeah, Loki.
Yeah, I thought it was Loki. A couple times it sounded like Loki, and I was like,
yeah,
what?
well, you can,
but
it's hard to tell sometimes with like the accent.
Right. But... and she would talk to it, and it would talk back, and you're just thinking, oh, this girl's nuts. But really, it's not.
It was an actual like dragon,
like an entity that she was speaking to, at least in her mind. And she's able to summon these powers and stuff. But the problem is, without the R rating, they really skirted around the abuse angle. And Nate and I talked about it, and there were a couple things you didn't even notice in that we established.
I didn't even notice.
Like, you thought that they just kidnapped her, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize there was actual like trafficking.
Yes.
And the other thing, I didn't know that. I thought those guys abused her, but I didn't know the extent of what it was.
Yes.
I just thought it was maybe like a creepy uncle or something.
No.
Some,
it was
like really weird guy.
It was like a group of like 7 to 10 guys that would like go in and do stuff to magic.
Yeah.
When she was a kid. So like obviously this fractured her mind and stuff like that. But I'm not saying like we need to see this. Like I don't need Serbian film here. Like this is the second review in a row where I've referenced Serbian film or some
Seems
kind
like
of.
We're getting some hidden things with you.
Check the chat.
No chat today.
No. We don't really need that dark, but it was hard to skirt around that issue and still take it super seriously. Like some viewers wouldn't even notice it. It's the same thing with Sunspot. He burned his girlfriend to death during sex.
Yeah.
Like they were getting intimate and he activated and killed her. But you don't see that. You just see a walking fire corpse later on, and it's like it was his girlfriend or whatever. You see the same thing with Sam, I think, Cannonball, when he's in the mines and he accidentally ruined the mines and killed his father and stuff.
Yeah, that one you actually see even less of it.
Yeah, you just see him walk through the mines.
Yeah.
That's it. So there wasn't enough shown with these things. I don't think it could have been a lot deeper. And the R rating would have helped that. I mean, Nightmare is able to get into the fears by showing them. Like, it's R rated. And you know what? The thing is, there are allusions to sexual abuse in Nightmare and all this other stuff. And they are able to do that. And yes, those movies have comedic beats to them. And yes, they got too comedic later on. But Freddy is scary because he can tap into your fears and show them to you. He doesn't show you a censored version of your fears. Like, he's not like...
He shows you the full thing.
Time to show you the PG-13 version of your childhood trauma. Oh boy, let's cut these things out. No, he shows you the whole thing. And I think that would have really helped establish the horror element. As is, it's a fun experiment in the X universe, and I'm glad it's made. I would take this over nothing. But Nate and I were talking, and I'll keep this as PG-13 as possible. During any activity, if you hit a climax, whether it's a story or a real-life activity, if you have an unsatisfying conclusion to that climax, it comes off as like, I'm glad this happened. I'm glad we had this little encounter, but it could have been better. Yeah. And that's what this movie suffers from majorly, actually, is like, I'm glad this was made. Wow, like, especially Magic was fantastic. We keep talking about her, but it could have been more. And that really sucks. That's the same feeling I had with Dark Phoenix. It's like, this is better than nothing.
You can see the potential. Right. It seemed like they were afraid to go there.
Yeah.
And it was probably because they were trying to keep within the PG-13 rating.
Probably, yeah. So, because this was originally supposedly going to be R.
Yeah.
And I think that shows. What else do you have to say about the movie, though, Nate? Spoiler-wise or anything?
I think just overall, my biggest impression was actually the both the characters and also just the horror element of it. Mm-hmm. I was actually pleasantly surprised because when I went into this, I didn't even know what to think about it. I was kind of like, well, a horror X-Men movie could be good. You know, I don't know any of these characters.
Right.
I didn't even know that was Magic until after the movie.
Right. When she said
most of the way. Yeah, most of the way through the movie.
Which, can I say, is one of the best scenes.
Yeah, that was amazing.
When they tell Magic, they're like, you can't beat this guy, like, he's Magic. And she turns and, like, activates her sword, and she's like, so am I.
Yeah,
and then just goes
when
off
that
with
happened,
the dragon.
When that happened, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, because I actually knew who Magic was before watching this movie.
Right, you just didn't look at who any of the characters were or anything like that.
I didn't know that was Magic.
Right.
So when I saw that, I was like, oh, yeah, the puppet makes sense. the character makes sense. All that stuff. I was like, oh, okay. But so I was surprised. I didn't know what to think about it going into it because I didn't know how a horror element would fit with an X-Men movie, but I was pleasantly surprised with that.
Yeah.
I also was surprised with the characters because Magic was the only character I knew. I've never heard of Sunspot. I've never heard of Wolfsbane. I've never heard of Cannonball. But as the movie went along, I thought it did a good job with making you like the characters.
Yeah.
And I thought all of them were actually pretty well done.
It's just too bad there wasn't more time. Our camera failed again. Nate had to go because he had stuff he had to do. But I guess our overall conclusion, which we did say before and Nate said as well, we'll let him speak for himself. Very cool, Nate. Was that this movie's worth seeing if you're a fan of the timeline, like we said. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's a fun movie. It's probably one of the more interesting things in theaters right now when we put this out, but it's not going to blow you away. And we really do think it sucks because it seems a lot like there was studio interference in these later movies in the Fox X-Men universe. Even though it's not provable, in my opinion, it seemed like Disney messed with the last couple movies so that they would seem forgettable or not as good. And just okay. We saw that a lot with Dark Phoenix, with stuff like the Skrulls. It seems like that happened a little bit here too and prevented an R rating and some other stuff. But I don't know that. That's just my takeaway. Overall, I enjoy the movie. I think it's worth your time. But I don't think it's going to revolutionize superhero movies or do anything super new and different. It's just a fun outing. Could have been better. Could have been a lot worse. And I'm glad I watched it.